Hi guys, Wheelie here. Today's project is a nice quick one. I'm making coasters, or rather, coaster covers. You can make them all in one colour, but I much prefer to change colour each round because I'm using techniques that make the multicolour coasters completely seamless. Today I'm going to make one of these Christmas themed ones with you. I've designed them so they're easy to remove, so when someone inevitably spills coffee on one, you can take it off, give it a wash, and pop it back on again. These will fit over most round coasters. You can either buy blank wooden, cork, or ceramic coasters from the craft or hardware store, or use these covers to smarten up an old set. This is a simple pattern, but it isn't intended for absolute beginners. I will talk you through the techniques I use, but if you come up against one you aren't comfortable with, I've put links on the screen that will take you to longer video tutorials, and I'm always happy to help. Just leave me a comment. I think you'll be fine though. This is such a nice quick project and the end result looks really good. You'll need some number 3 weight yarn. I recommend cotton or a cotton blend because it will wash well and can handle a bit of heat. I'm using 3 colours. I've got red and off-white and green. You could use anywhere from 1 to 4 colours. I'm using a 3.5mm hook rather than the 4mm hook the yarn labels recommend. That will give me a more rigid fabric. With this pattern, rather than making a gauge swatch, I suggest you follow the pattern up to the end of round 4 and then check the size against your coaster insert. You'll also need a pair of scissors and your big-eyed needle for the tails. You'll need round coasters. The ones I've got this time have a diameter of 9 centimeters or 3.5 inches, but I've used this same pattern to cover an old set of coasters which have a diameter of about 4 inches and are much thicker, so you can see that it's a fairly forgiving design. The last thing is an optional but recommended extra. Hair elastics. Avoid the type that has a little metal bit that can rust when it's washed. Check that the elastic is big enough to slip over the coaster. If you don't want to use a hair elastic, you could do what I've done with this one. After the final round, I fastened off my yarn, then I cut an extra piece of yarn, threaded it on my needle, and I stitched around. I left the tail of it poking out at both ends, and I tied those 2 ends together. Start by creating a magic circle with the colour you're using for the centre of your coaster. I'm using red. The first round is 12 double crochets in the magic circle. You can of course chain 2 or 3 to stand in for the first stitch of the round, or use whatever alternative starting stitch you prefer to use. I pull up a loop as high as a double crochet and hold that in place. Yarn over with the loop. Yarn over with the working yarn and pull it through 2, then let go. There are 2 loops on the hook. Yarn over and pull through 2. And that funny looking thing will look a lot more like a double crochet when there are other stitches with it. I'm now going to put 11 normal double crochets into the circle. So I yarn over and insert the hook. Make sure you have 2 loops on your hook back here and 2 lines of yarn from the circle and its tail on your hook. Yarn over and pull up a loop, 3 loops on the hook. Yarn over and pull through 2, 2 loops on the hook. Yarn over and pull through 2 for the first double crochet. So what I have now counts as my first 2 double crochets. I need to put 10 more into this circle to finish round 1. I'll meet you at the end of the round. Including that first stitch, the alternative starting stitch, I have 12 double crochets in the magic circle, which is round 1. Pull on the tail of the circle to start closing it up. If you're sticking with this colour, you could slip stitch to the first stitch to finish the round. I'm going to be using a different colour for round 2. Instead of slip stitching to finish the round, I'm going to cut my yarn, leaving about 10 centimeters of tail. Grab my needle, pull the hook up so that the tail slides through the stitch and out. Thread the tail onto my needle. If I was slip stitching, I'd join to this first stitch of the round. An invisible join is worked 1 stitch to the left. Insert the needle under the top of that stitch, under the V, trying not to split the yarn. Pull the needle through, pull the yarn through. Locate the last stitch of the round, the last one that I just did. Insert the needle into the center of that stitch, catching both the back loop of the stitch and this loop, the camel stitch loop. Pull the yarn through And that's created something that looks very like the V at the top of a crochet stitch, and I'll be able to work into that in the next round, just like a normal stitch. I will need to weave in this tail to secure that though. I'll just turn the circle over so I can weave in at the back. I won't talk you through this as I'm assuming you understand tails. It's just about sewing back and forth 3 times and keeping that sewing hidden at the back where no one will see it. I'm going to do the same with my magic circle as well, so it will stay closed. I do like to weave in the tails as I go, but when you make this coaster cover for the first time, remember that you haven't made a gauge swatch. The first 4 rounds are basically your gauge swatch. It might be better not to weave in as you go until you've completed those 4 rounds and confirmed that your coaster cover is going to fit your coaster. I wouldn't want you to waste all that effort and yarn by weaving in tails. At the end of round 1, I have a little circle of 12 double crochets. Nice and neat. Round 2. I'm going to attach my second colour. This colour is called Stone, and I'll be using a standing double crochet. If you'd rather, you can use whatever method you're comfortable with to attach your yarn and work your first double crochet. To work a standing double crochet, put a slip knot on the hook. That slip knot doesn't need to be any tighter or looser than it usually is. When you're attaching your new yarn, it's better to shift a few stitches away from the last join so you don't end up with all your tails being woven into the same area, creating bumps. Yarn over on the hook, pop your finger on the yarn over to hold it in place. Insert the hook into the stitch you're going to work into. So I have 2 loops on my hook back here, and I have the top of the stitch I'm working into. I'm going to yarn over and pull up a loop. There are 3 loops on my hook. I use the middle finger of my left hand to hold onto the tail now to create a little bit of tension. That helps me yarn over and pull through 2. There are 2 loops on the hook, yarn over and pull through 2 to finish the stitch. So that's a standing double crochet. If you haven't seen one before, aren't they lovely? For round 2, we're putting 2 double crochets in each stitch from round 1. So I'll squeeze a second double crochet into the same stitch as this standing double crochet. From here, it's just putting 2 double crochets into each stitch from round 1. I'll leave you to do that. I'll be back just before the end of round 2 so I can quickly show you a tip about how to crochet into an invisible join. The invisible join has created a V on top of the V of the alternative starting stitch I used at the beginning of round 1. When you crochet into an invisible join, you can either just insert your hook under the V of the invisible join, or you can do the slightly trickier thing and insert your hook under the V of the actual stitch as well as the invisible join, and then crochet. And doing that will make the end and the start of round 1 almost impossible to spot. As you can see, it is a little fiddly. It will be easier next round because we'll have a standing double crochet to work into. Round 1 started with an alternative starting stitch and they have a slightly misshapen V at the top. Okay, I will finish off this round and meet you in a moment. There are 24 double crochets in round 2. If you're sticking with this colour, you can slip stitch to the first stitch of the round, or you can cut your yarn and use an invisible join. Just like last time, I pull the hook up so the tail slides out through the stitch. But this time, I'm going to start by weaving in the tail from the standing double crochet before I work the invisible join. This is just a tail, but if you're careful, you can pull the knot to the back of the circle so it's completely hidden. That will change the shape of the top of the stitch, but because we're going to put an invisible join on top of the stitch, it doesn't actually matter. There's not a lot of space to work in because we only have 1 round in each colour, so just be a little bit careful about how you do the weaving in so it stays hidden. Now that's done, I'll work the invisible join. 1 stitch to the left of the standing double crochet, slip the needle under the V and pull the yarn through. Find the last stitch I made, insert the needle down into the middle of the V and out the back of the circle, catching both the back loop of the V and the camel loop of the double crochet, and that has recreated that little V shape of a stitch. I'm going to weave that in to secure it, but I won't make you watch me weave it in. I'll meet you in a moment to start round 3. For round 3, I'm bringing in my third colour, this green yarn. I'll put a slip knot on my hook and use a standing double crochet again. You can attach your yarn however you like. That's where I attached my yarn last time, so I'm moving a few stitches to the right. I yarn over on the hook and hold that in place. Insert the hook into the stitch I'd like to work into. So I've got 2 loops on my hook back here. I yarn over and pull up a loop. There are 3 loops on the hook. Yarn over and pull through 2. There are 2 loops on the hook. Yarn over and pull through 2. And then put a second double crochet in next to that first double crochet. I just split my yarn. For this round, we're going to put a double crochet on its own in the next stitch. And then we'll repeat that pattern by putting 2 double crochets in this stitch and then 1 double crochet on its own in the next, and keep repeating that around the circle. There will be 36 stitches at the end of the round. If you're on track with the pattern, you'll finish with a double crochet on its own in the last spot. So that is round 3. At this point, you can either slip stitch if you're going to continue with this colour, or cut your yarn and work an invisible join and weave in the tails. I'm going to do that, but as I've walked you through it twice already, I will just skip ahead now to the start of round 4. If you do need a reminder, in the drop down box under the video I've put chapter links which you can use to get back to the end of round 1, where I gave quite a detailed explanation of the invisible join. For round 4, I'm bringing back colour 2. I'll attach it with a standing double crochet. Then a second double crochet in the same stitch with it. Then a double crochet on its own in each of the next 2 stitches. That's the pattern we'll follow for this round. 2 double crochets in the next stitch, then 1 double crochet in each of the next 2 stitches. There will be 48 stitches in this round. I'll meet you at the end of the round, but we're going to be doing something a little different, so do not cut your yarn. Do a quick size check before we join up round 4. If your circle is smaller than your coaster, see if it has some stretch to it. I've made a lot of these, and with my yarn the coaster cover fits even if the circle is a centimetre or half an inch smaller than the coaster. If you think your circle is too small, start over using a larger hook, and if your circle is much bigger than the coaster, you will need to try again using a smaller hook. When you're happy that your coaster cover is going to fit, we can start round 5. Round 5 is worked in the back loop and the camel loop of round 4. If you want to, you can join with a slip stitch. I'm going to pull up a loop to about the height of a half double crochet and then take my hook out. This is the first stitch of the round. This is the stitch 1 to the left of it. I insert my hook into it from the back of the circle to the front, going under both loops of the V. And then I grab the working loop on my hook and pull it to the back of my work like this. So the working loop has created a line of yarn that sits in front of the first stitch of round 4. That is going to help disguise the start of the round. You'll see. This round will start in the second stitch of round 4, the one that we pulled the working loop through. Start by chaining 1 to get up to height, and then we're going to place our first single crochet. So we're going to be working not just in the back loop, but also into the camel loop as well. Don't just catch that back loop on the hook like this. Flip your work over so you can see the V shape at the back of your work. We're going to catch that full V shape by inserting the hook down into the center of the stitch and catching both loops. And then yarn over and pull up a loop. There are 2 loops on the hook. Yarn over and pull through 2. So that's just a single crochet, but it's worked in both the back loop and the camel loop. We'll do that again. There's the V shape of the stitch. I turn the work towards me and you can see that there is another V on the back. Insert the hook down into the center of the stitch and catch that V and single crochet. You'll find that as you get comfortable with this, you won't actually need to turn your work towards you. You'll just be able to poke your hook down into the center of the stitch and catch both loops of that second V. I'll leave you to keep doing that, putting one single crochet into the back loop and camel loop of each stitch, and I'll meet you to place the final stitch of the round. I have one normal stitch left to work into, and then there's this area which we created by pulling the working loop to the back of the circle. I'll work into the normal stitch first in the normal way. The loop has put 2 lines of yarn in front of the stitch. I want to just catch one of those lines. It doesn't really matter which. There's not really a back and a front. And I want to catch the back loop and the camel loop of the stitch that sits behind it. But I want to stress that if you're looking at what I'm doing and thinking, what the hell, as long as you catch one loop of the working loop that we pulled to the back, this is going to look fine. You don't necessarily need to work into the stitch behind as well. Working into the stitch behind it as well just means there's less of a stretched look to this area. That is round 6. It has 48 single crochets. To finish the round, you can either slip stitch to the first single crochet of the round, or I'm going to finish the round by joining to the second stitch along. I'll pull up a loop to about the height of a half double crochet, insert my hook into the second stitch of the round from the back to the front, hook the working loop, and pull it through. As you might have guessed, round 7 is also worked in the back loop, but this time it's just normal back loop. We're not going to go into the camel loop as well. Start by chaining 2 to get up to height, which doesn't count as a stitch. The first stitch is a double crochet 2 together, worked over the first 2 stitches. And remember, the first stitch of the round is worked into the stitch we pulled the working loop through. Yarn over, insert the hook catching just the back loop. There are 2 loops on the hook plus a line of yarn from the back loop. Yarn over and pull up a loop. There are 3 loops on the hook. Yarn over and pull through 2. There are 2 loops on the hook. Don't finish that double crochet. Yarn over, insert the hook into the back loop of the next stitch along. There are 3 loops on the hook plus 1 line of yarn from the back loop of the stitch. Yarn over and pull up a loop. There are 4 loops on the hook. Yarn over and pull through 2. There are 3 loops on the hook. There are 2 unfinished double crochets. Yarn over and pull through all 3 loops to finish both double crochets off at once. Next, we'll put 1 double crochet in the back loop of each of the next 2 stitches. And another double crochet 2 together over the next 2 stitches, still working in the back loop. Yarn over and insert the hook. There are 2 loops plus 1 line of yarn from the back loop of the stitch. Yarn over and pull up a loop. There are 3 loops. Yarn over and pull through 2. There are 2 loops. Don't finish that double crochet. Yarn over and insert the hook in the back loop of the next stitch along. There are 3 loops on the hook plus the line of yarn that is the back loop of the stitch. Yarn over and pull up a loop. There are 4 loops on the hook. Yarn over and pull through 2. There are 3 loops on the hook. Yarn over and pull through all 3 loops to finish off the double crochet 2 together. The next 2 stitches will each get 1 double crochet in the back loop, and we'll just keep repeating that pattern of double crochet 2 together and then 1 double crochet in each of the next 2 stitches all the way around the circle. You'll have 36 stitches at the end of the round. I'll meet you to place the 36th stitch. The final stitch of this round is a little easier than the final stitch of last round. I want to catch 1 loop of the working loop we pulled through to the back, and if you'd like to, you can also catch the back loop of the stitch it's sitting on top of. It's not crucial though. And that is the 7th round done. This time I'm just going to slip stitch to finish the round. Insert the hook into the top of the first stitch of the round, which is this first double crochet 2 together. Yarn over and pull up a loop. Pull that loop through the working loop. And that is round 7 done. Let's start the final round. Chain 1 to get up to height and grab your hair lacquer. The first stitch of the round is a single crochet, and we'll be working into both loops of the stitch we just slip stitched to and around this elastic. If you aren't using elastics, you can follow the same arrangement of stitches just without worrying about holding a hair elastic as well as your hook and your project and your yarn, you lucky thing. Insert the hook under the V of the first stitch, the one that we slip stitched to. Pop the hair lacquer on top of the hook as well. Yarn over and pull up a loop. There are 2 loops on the hook. Yarn over and pull through both loops to single crochet. The next stitch is a single crochet 2 together worked over the next 2 stitches. Start by inserting the hook under the V of the next stitch. Make sure the hair lacquer is also sitting on top of your hook. Yarn over and pull up a loop. There are 2 loops on the hook. Now insert the hook into the next stitch along under both loops of it. Make sure the hair lacquer is still on top of your hook. Yarn over and pull up a loop. There are 3 loops on the hook now. Yarn over and pull through all 3 loops, which holds the elastic in place. And that's the pattern for this round. Single crochet 2 together. So we'll single crochet into the next stitch, insert the hook, make sure the hair elastic is also on top of the hook, yarn over and pull up a loop, 2 loops on the hook, yarn over and pull through 2. I'll do 1 more single crochet 2 together with you. We'll be working it over both of the next 2 stitches. Insert your hook into the first of those 2 stitches, yarn over and pull up a loop. There are 2 loops on the hook. Sometimes it helps to hold on to the loops while you insert the hook into the next stitch. Yarn over and pull up another loop. There are 3 loops on the hook. Yarn over and pull through all 3. You might find you need to wriggle the elastic around a bit as you're crocheting. Otherwise, it's just repetition from here. There will be 24 stitches in this round. If you've followed the pattern correctly, your last stitch of the round will be a single crochet 2 together. I'll meet you at the end of the round. You can either finish with a slip stitch to the first stitch of the round and fasten off, or you can cut your yarn and work an invisible join. The only difference between an invisible join on single crochet compared to the joins we've been doing on double crochet is that when you insert the needle down into the center of the stitch and take it out to the back, you only need to catch 1 loop of the single crochet because there isn't really a proper camel loop on a single crochet. Don't forget to weave in any other tails and you're done. Could you take a moment and click the like button on this video now? Thank you for that. It makes a big difference. And how did your coaster cover turn out? Let me know. I've gone through a phase where I've made so many of them. I'd be really interested to know what colors you've used. I love that just by changing the color, you change the whole style of the coaster. I'll pop some links up on the screen for you with other patterns you might be interested in putting on your projects to make shortlist or very long list, and I'll see you again soon.